Fabulous. Thank you very much for that. Okay. Can I welcome all members and officers to this meeting of the Communities, Environment and Housing Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which is convened as a hybrid meeting. The meeting is being recorded and will be available via the Council's website to be viewed as soon as possible following the meeting. The meeting agenda pack can also be viewed on the Council's website. Everyone participating in the meeting will be attending either in the Council chamber or from remote locations. Members attending remotely must keep their cameras on for the duration of the meeting. However, all attendees should keep their microphones off until invited to speak. Members and officers can indicate they want to speak by pressing the hands up icon. In the event of any vote, the scrutiny officer will call out the names of the members who will then cast their vote. I will now proceed to the agenda of business. So, agenda item 1 is apologies for absence. I know we've got a couple who are going to be turning up late, but they'll come in when we get them. All right, I can see hands flying up. So let's go with Councillor Clatworthy.
Thank you, Chair. I'll need to leave at 5:45 due to a private engagement.
Okay, no problem. We'll try. Hopefully we'll be done by then, but we'll see. Councillor Martin Williams.
Yeah, Chair. Similarly, I may need to leave at 6. I might be travelling, so I might be able to continue with my camera off, but I may have a drop dead at 6. Thanks.
Okay, no problem. And then Councillor Farr.
I'm hoping that I can leave after the first report, Chair.
Yeah, you're only needed for the Porthcawl region, so we hope that you can leave just after that. Fabulous. Thank you very much, everyone. We will then continue then. Oh, yes, of course. And should be recorded. We have formal apologies from Janine Nightingale, Corporate Director for Communities, as she's away as it's her anniversary, which is fair enough. So we'll go to agenda item 2, declarations of interest, noting, of course, the legal information that was sent round earlier. Councillor Pratt.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I know you're going to change the it around, so I'm trying to keep up. Agenda item 4, personal as an elected member of Porthcawl Town Council, which is mentioned in the report. And agenda item 5, prejudicial as I remember of the Development Control Committee. So as and when planning applications come through, I don't want to be predetermined via this meeting and leave it there. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, no problem. Thank you, Councillor Pratt. Councillor Martin Williams.
Similarly, Chair, item 4, a personal interest as I'm a member of 2 community councils who are undergoing cap transfers. Okay, no problem. Councillor Paul Davis.
Yes, thanks, Chair. All matters pertaining to Kyra Development Trust mentioned in item 4, Chair. I'm also a member of my Stake Town Council.
Okay,
so it's a personal interest. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. Councillor Ian Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd like to declare personal interest in agenda item 4 and anything relating to Newbridge Fields, which arises, and Bridgend Athletic Rugby Football Club. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. A personal declaration on item number 4, member of Bridgend Athletic, and they are going through the CAT process.
Okay, thank you very much. There's going to be a lot of report forms going in on declarations of interest today. Councillor Davis, I'm assuming it's a legacy. Fabulous. No worries. And similarly with Councillor Wood. So Councillor Farr.
I'm not sure, Chair, I should just declare personal interest because I'm a resident of Porthcawl and the report is on Porthcawl. No, that's fine, thank you. Just thought check.
I think you'll be fine, Councillor Farr, but if you wish, it's always up to you. I have no legal powers, sadly. Councillor Kendall.
Item 5, I'm also a member of the Development Control Committee.
So will that be a personal or prejudicial one?
Oh, sorry, yes, it will be personal.
Okay, no problem. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Kendall. Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, personal interest 4 and 5. Member of my Stake Town Council for 4 and a member of Development Control on 5. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I will be declaring personal interest as well. Agenda items 4 and 5 as it pertains to mentions information on when I was a cabinet member. Although we are not scrutinising those decisions, I will not be declaring a prejudicial interest on the matter. Councillor Haynes, I thought we'd come to the end of them.
Yeah, apologies, Chair. I'm a member of Development and Control, so whether that I should put a press, I should notify you of a personal prejudice, personal item. Is that, should I do that if I'm a member of?
As always, as Kelly always says, personal and prejudicial interests are a matter for the member to decide whether or not you feel you are prejudiced or by the decision, but we aren't making any decisions today.
Okay.
We are merely looking at the consultation, so it's entirely up to you. Bearing in mind, I'm not sure how many people are left.
A personal interest.
Okay, fair enough. And please remember to take your hand down. If we are finished with the declarations of interest, we will move on to approval of minutes. Can I have a mover and seconder? Please remember, though, please only move and second the minutes if you were actually at the meeting. I know we've got a few new members, so I don't want anyone shouting out move and second. That just to move the meeting along. Councillor Davis.
Yeah, I move. First set and second set if needed. Thank you.
Okay. So I have a mover and a seconder for the 17th of Feb and 7th of April.
I'll second both. Second both, Chair.
Fabulous. All right. Covered, Stephen? Make sure I covered that. All right, then. We are going to switch our agenda around a little bit today. We are going to go for agenda item 5 first. We are going to go with the Porthcawl Regeneration Master Plan first and then go on to CAT after. So, although we did have a site visit this morning, so I'm not expecting a very long presentation. Councillor Pratt?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just obviously, as I declared a prejudicial one in this one, I'm aware that my DTC colleagues are personal, but I'm declaring prejudicial, so I'll leave at this point. Could someone notify me when I come back in? Thank you.
Absolutely. Rachel or Stephen will try and call you back in when we get there.
Thank you.
Okay, so don't move away too far away from your laptop. Okay. Right, now, thank you for reminding me. Now Councillor Pratt has left the meeting. If anyone else has declared prejudicial interest, please leave now and we'll call you back later. I think Councillor Pratt was the only one. So, following our site visit this morning, Della, Jacob, would you like to present a short report in what we had this morning? Thank you.
Oh, there we are. Yeah, we'll certainly make sure that it's a short synopsis of the report that's got in front of you. So, for the purpose of the recording, I'm Della Webb. I'm the Group Manager for Strategic Regeneration. Firstly, I just wanted to thank those members that were able to make the site visit this morning, and apologies to those that weren't able to be there. I hope that you found it helpful. I hope that what that's enabled the members to be able to do is to visualise some of the aspects that are covered in the report, and to put into context also some of the narrative and some of the commentary that I'm sure they will have been interested in within the report as well. So as we've done previously, sometimes being able to go out on sites and have a good look round does help with putting things into context. So thank you for that. So as you have noted, the report is there to provide members with a short update on the work that's been going on behind the scenes since our last visit to Scrutiny back in 2023. And the principal purpose then of the body of the report is to take you through the vast amount of consultation that's happened in relation to the Porthcawl Master Plan, the current iteration of Porthcawl Master Plan, to provide you with a bit of feedback, particularly relating to the public consultation that's taken place, to show you how that is helping us to develop some thoughts, and then also to put a little bit of a forward programme in place, very high level still, but it's just to show the forward trajectory and how both yourselves as members and Scrutiny and also the public will be able to engage further in terms of development of the master plan, but also in terms of the Porthcawl regeneration area and the development work as a whole going forward. So I think I'll stop there, but I'll ask my colleague Jake to just highlight one or two points within the report that perhaps are most relevant to perhaps your discussion today, and then we'll pause there and take whatever questions member have. Thank you.
Thank you, Daleth. For the purpose of the recording, my name's Jacob Lawrence and I'm the Porthcawl Regeneration Programme Manager. I'd just like to draw everyone's attention to paragraph 3.13 in the report. As you would have seen through the report, these are a significant amount of detail in terms of previous consultations as well as the most recent consultation. I think what's quite pertinent for scrutiny today is to look at and understand that as part of the work in connection with the preparation of this master plan, we looked back again to the placemaking strategy consultation. So with the partnership with Welsh Government, we're able to, in effect, put a different pair of glasses on and look at things again slightly differently. So prior to this master plan even going to the public, a series of further amendments were carried out compared to the placemaking strategy. I won't read them out verbatim, but in essence, they were looking at even more open space. So we essentially more than doubled the open space that was included at placemaking strategy stage. One of the other key moves was looking at additional surface parking to the north of the Coney Beach site. This obviates the need for a multi-storey because you can achieve the same amount of parking through Hillsborough and Coney Beach North compared to one single multi-storey. So there's a lot of benefits there in terms of usability, the parking being more evenly distributed, but also costs as well in terms of a multi-storey is significant. The access road was realigned to the south through the Monster Park, and that responded to previous consultation concerns, allows for a lot more trees to be retained, benefits the Mackworth Road residents, and it is also a benefit in terms of how we deal with levels and earthworks. There's been an introduction of kind of a more diverse mix of leisure opportunities scattered throughout the master plan area, so things like a site identified for crazy golf, mini golf, that type of thing, amongst other opportunities. The introduction of a landscape buffer on the eastern edge of the site, which wasn't ever there in previous plans. I think that's quite an important area in terms of both its visual function but also the ecology function. Looking at the introduction of a motorhome area that's never previously appeared in plans, so looking to have that provision there to continue the legacy. Part of the site was once a very large motorhome site and caravan site, and then enlarging the school site. So north of 10% enlargement on the education land, but also bringing that closer to the sea, and then looking at further improved linkages between East and Prom the town centre, so namely an additional route. So we always talk about the Dock Street extension, but also another key route further north that links through to the town centre via the new crossing that's gone in there by the Aldi. I'll also now draw members' attention to paragraph 3.23 of the report, and don't worry, after this I'll stop talking. What this looks at is off the back of the consultation carried out with the master plans that was in February of this year. There's some key areas that we're now as a team working alongside Welsh Government looking at how do we further evolve the master plan to respond to that consultation. As I say, I won't go through the consultation responses, they are within the report. I'm sure members have looked at that beforehand, but the areas we're seeking to further explore, and I guess really seek direction from scrutiny today, is looking at the housing numbers again. Is there some reduction there? We have to be in accord with planning policy. It's got to be a credible and deliverable plan, but is there some room there, and is there a benefit to the plan and looking at housing numbers again? Also building heights, which is interlinked. If you do reduce the building heights, you naturally reduce the housing numbers. Is there some areas that can be explored there, possibly around the Salt Lake area, for example? And then some other points there, looking at the open spaces in further detail, and also looking at the leisure in further detail with some expression of interest work that we're doing in the background. So that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour through the kind of key points within the report. I think will benefit from a lot of discussion today, and really appreciate everyone's time this afternoon. So thank you.
Thank you very much, both of you, for that. Right, we are going to move on to the questions. As you can imagine, we've got a few that we've prepared during our pre-meeting. But obviously, members who weren't there, or if there are any follow-up questions, please do raise your hand and I will bring you in accordingly. So we're going to start with a bit more of the background of the report, and Councillor Colin Davis has more of a general comment with a question about how we've got here.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. As you say, it's not so much a question as a comment, really. I think a lot of our questions were answered this morning on the walk around the site visit. I just want to thank the team. I think I want to give them some praise as well. the report outlines an engagement strategy, and today was very much around engaging us as a group of councillors on scrutiny. So grateful for that. But it also outlines, a tortuous process over decades, really, for us to get to where we are today. It's really not easy to keep a handle on a process which has gone on for so long. Officers come and go, but this is still with us. But I think finally, council and people of Porthcawl are actually going to see, some major milestones coming up within the next year. And I know, just talking to the team this morning, they're quite excited about actually now moving on at different stages. So yeah, I just want to make that comment, positive, and let's hope we can continue in this vein. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Davis. I don't think anyone wants to come back on anything there. No, that's fine. Okay, we're going to move on a little bit, as no one's raising their hands just yet, to the Porthcawl Waterfront Master Plan and Councillor Gary Haynes, which is pages 37 to 40, for those following along in the pack. Councillor Haynes?
Thank you, Chair. My question is related to page 39 of the document, 3.11. So this came up during the site meeting this morning. Again, I want to echo Councillor Davis's comments. I found it, as a new member of the committee, I found it interesting and very informative, and thank you very much for that. I did appreciate it. So I've noted that there's been some alterations to the number of houses since the consultation process. So I get that. I get that we're currently looking at a number of about 1,100 houses in total. My understanding is that any alterations in the number of houses will affect the income coming into the plan itself, and will affect the completion of various communal projects. So my question is there a critical number beyond which these communal projects would be endangered? So we're currently looking at 1,100. Is there a figure beyond which these projects would not be viable?
Thank you, Councillor Haynes. Jake, Yala, which one? Dick?
Yeah, if I may, thank you. It's a really good question, and something that is a moment in time. So scheme viability is something we've constantly been looking at throughout the last, certainly since my time at the council, the last 5 years. One of the big challenges, being really honest, is building costs are going up and up and up. So what is the critical number at today's point in time might be a critical number in a month's time, in 2 years' time. I think it's fair to say it's around the 1,100 home mark, is a point where we know the scheme is viable and stacks up. It's like anything, there's probably some movement where there could be some downward movement and it would still stack up, but there would get to a point where it really wouldn't, or if it did, we'd have to sacrifice certain things. So it's always a balance, So I use this as an example, there could be a world where you had a significant reduction in homes, but you had, instead of having really high quality multi-service public realm, potentially water features, you literally have gravel as your public realm because it's cheaper. So, that's a very stark binary example, but essentially it is a balance. So I think it's fair to say that all of the positive things in the plan at the moment, if we were to reduce the unit numbers substantially, as in by multiple hundreds as a random example, that would mean a lot of the positive things couldn't be delivered and would potentially get into a point where the whole scheme couldn't be delivered. Because there's some significant infrastructure, not just the nice things we see, but drainage diversions, coastal defence revetment, new access road, electricity upgrades, all sorts of things in the ground that no one sees, that if there's not a sufficient development, viability there, those things wouldn't stack up as well. So apologies, it's not an exact answer, but it's essentially it's a balance, and that striking the right balance is key. That's why we want your guidance here today, because that can then inform what we go out and rerun on the viability as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Jake. Did you want to come back on anything there, Councillor Haynes?
No, that's a good answer. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Councillor Ian Williams, you had a question on housing itself. So as Councillor Haynes has touched on it, was your question answered, or do you want to come back on anything?
No, I'd come in now if I could, Chair.
Yeah.
Or shall I number 4? I tried to put my hand up, it wouldn't work. The volume of housing, the perception by members of the public input call is that the numbers are quite large. It's a big target to hit. There is obviously a housing target set by Welsh Government for this authority. I'd like to know what that target is and how that target relates to the 20,000 houses which were promised during the term of the Senedd from 21 to 25. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Williams. I will come to those who've got their hands up as well in time. Del, or is that a question we're going to need to come back to Councillor on?
I think it's a question that we're going to have to take back and have a conversation with our LDP colleagues on that one.
Yeah, no problem. We can expect a written response and we can circulate that to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you for that, Ian. Right, okay. I'm going to go to the hands. Ian, if you could lower yours as well, just so I keep track of who's in the list. Councillor Clark.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Just listening to the conversation now with Jake, I think there needs to be a little bit of clarity because members are mentioning houses and Jake is mentioning homes. I think there needs to be an understanding that there isn't, as far as I'm aware, going to be 1,100 houses. There's going to be 1,100 homes where people can live, i.e. there'll be, I take it, flats, apartments. They won't all be houses, and I think that needs to be clarified. I'm not quite sure whether I'm right, Jake, but that's what I understand.
Well, Jake was nodding, as was Della in front of me, but I'll bring him in now to clarify the situation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Clark. It's a really good point. There's a substantial number of apartments within the master plan proposals, but I think it's worth also noting that, and this is one of the points on the public consultation, a lot of locals wanted to make sure there's sufficient number of houses within the scheme. So one of the other areas when we talk about looking at housing numbers, looking at building heights, there's a natural fit between if you reduce the building heights, you're more within the realms of some additional house typologies. So one of the areas being explored and would benefit from, Scrutiny's input is, looking to maximise the number of houses as opposed to apartments within the scheme. There's always going to be a reasonable number of apartments within a scheme like this, particularly in the Salt Lake area. But is that something that Scrutiny sees as a good way forward? Because certainly the consultation, that was a strong thing that, a lot of people saw, houses as being, and again, linked to the human scale of a house versus, a 5-story block of flats. And it's the homes is, the 1,100 is homes, but it certainly will not be 1,100 3-bed, 4-bed detached houses. It couldn't fit. It's a big site. Members that did the walk over today see how big the site is, but that would not fit on this site. So hopefully that helps. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And I think that clarified the situation for everyone there. If we could use the word 1,100 homes and not houses, I think that'd be clearer for everyone. Okay, going on with the list, Councillor Clackworthy.
Thank you, Chair. So my question's regarding housing. So we're planning to build over 1,000 new homes. My question is, where's the new doctor's surgery? People in Bridgend and Porthcawl can't even get a GP appointment right now. So how on earth is the NHS meant to cope with even more pressure with just the one doctor's surgery we got in Porthcawl? So is this yet another case of build now and panic later?
Thank you very much for that. Obviously, a lot of that was covered during the LDP, was it? Councillor Clackworthy wasn't here, but Del, do you want to take on that?
Yeah, the response is to that effect, that the NHS and the local health would have been consulted on this site amongst all of the housing sites as part of the LDP evaluation. And the response has been that there is capacity within the existing infrastructure in Porthcawl to be able to sustain the number of additional homes that that would be within this development.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Councillor Clackworthy, did you want to come back or no? No, okay, that's fine, no problem. Councillor Farr, before I bring in Councillor Wood.
Yeah, can I just come back? Yeah, we do have a big health centre in Porthcawl. I think what is missing from there is that we don't have enough doctors rather than health centre. We, the health need to employ more doctors, more health staff. There is capacity in that health centre. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Obviously, that's something that I know Councillor Gebby picks up with the Health Board on a regular basis. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding the car parking spaces, it's been revised that the multi-storey will not go ahead. Do you think that there will be enough parking spaces in Porthcawl regarding sort of visitors for the beach, shoppers, residents, people visiting Porthcawl, the tourists, etc.? Thank you.
Okay, Dal?
Yeah, thank you. It's a really good question. So what we've been doing over the last four years now, we're running them again this summer, is parking surveys to understand, there's a lot of anecdotal evidence in Porthcawl and people like to say, this day there was this many cars, but we want to have hard evidence. So we've surveyed every summer all the car parks in Porthcawl. So that's Hillsborough North, Hillsborough South, Salt Lake, and Sandy Lane car park. They have a combined capacity of circa 1,500 spaces. As most people know, Salt Lake's not marked out, but that's based on standard assumptions that the engineers apply. What that survey work's shown is we have a typical maximum peak parking accumulation. So this is not how many people visit Porthcawl or those car parks in a day, it's how many at one time in those car parks, and that is circa 700 spaces at any one time as an average peak. What we do know we have is certain instances, and for example, the Porthcawl 10K we've surveyed, Bonfire Night we've surveyed, that's more like 1,300 to 1,500 cars at any one time. So what the strategy is based on and the master plan is based on is having permanent provision within the town for those 700 spaces, but then the additionality, so between 700 and 1,200, 700 and 1,100, 700 and 1,300, wherever it is, the strategy is based on having a site on the edge of the town for overflow provision. This type of arrangements, very common, as members will be aware, in lots of different seaside towns. As of yet, we don't have a site formally secured. We're working very hard in the background to do that. And I think it's fair to say that the way the land is set up in terms of the different parcels we have available and any phasing strategy, we wouldn't be looking to build on, say, Salt Lake in the main until we had an overflow provision in place. Likewise, we wouldn't be looking to resurface Hillsborough North unless we still had Salt Lake on stream or until we had the Coney Beach North car park. So as members will know that they attended the visit today, these various pieces of this puzzle that we can move around as we phase it to make sure we've always got the 700 spaces within the town to accommodate the average peak. But, it does rely in terms of that overflow provision, event-related provision. We want to have more events in Porthcawl if we can in the future, an edge-of-town facility. But that type of arrangement is, very common across the UK and is the best of both worlds because you still have the parking there when you need it, but you don't have a sea of space, of tarmac empty for most of the year. So hopefully that helps. But any follow-up questions, I'll be happy to take. Thank you.
Councillor Wood, content? Fabulous, thank you very much for that. We'll move on then to Councillor Martin Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to come in about a larger vision piece, and I can't remember if this was the right time or not, but if it's not, please shut me up. I mean, what I saw this morning was really impressive. There's no two ways about it. The work that's been done is impressive, and it'll be a remarkable piece of regeneration. I guess the question I've got is, whose vision is it? We've talked now about this going on for, I think Councillor Davis said 20 years and beyond. And in a sense, it's like Trigger's broom, isn't it? Because you've had different officers and you've had different cabinet members. So whose vision is it? And most importantly, how are we, as an authority, bringing the residents of Porthcawl with us on this? Because, I'm looking at some of the Porthcawl members now who may well support what's going on exactly, but there's a lot of noise out there. I was invited to some random Facebook group only in the week. It would save our seaside. And so it does seem to be a sense that the town is perhaps still divided on what the vision should be. And that's not to undermine the good work that's been done. It's just I fear that not everyone is still is on the journey, or maybe everyone's on the journey, but they're not all happy about the destination we're heading to. So I'm just going to really ask a question about is that concern recognised, and if so, what's been done to make sure that as many people as possible are on board?
Thank you for that, Councillor Williams. Who would like that one? Jake?
Yeah, I'm happy. Really good question. You know, let's not kind of shy away from it. Yeah, this site has been a long time in the making. The caravan park closed in 2000, Sandy Bay, so 25 years ago. There's been a lot of synergy in terms of, when we talk about the vision. So if we just go back to 2004, the site was in the unitary development plan, and there was a series of parameters around what the development of the site would include. And that did always include a component of residential. It always included components of open space, and it also included components of leisure. That then evolved into the 2008 LDP and the allocation for the site. And alongside that, there was the 2007 SPG, the Seven Bays SPG, and that was actually, not to dwell on unit numbers, but that was predicated on 1,500 homes. So that was a scheme that was very commercially based, not much open space whatsoever, very much grounded in commercial reality at that time. I think the vision's evolved. We've had the global financial crisis around the time that SPG was put in place, and that's the reason essentially why the site didn't proceed at that time. Some members will recall the previous plans were actually predicated on a large out-of-town Tesco-style development on Salt Lake with a huge car park. It probably would have been very bad for the town centre. So I think it's a blessing in disguise that the financial crisis, happened in terms of the Porthcawl scheme. Obviously, a lot of issues came out of that across the world, but in this isolated instance, that scheme not going ahead could be seen as a positive. The site has obviously been reallocated in the most recent LDP, and I think that the vision's a combination of the planning parameters that have applied and evolved to the site, so including those components of residential, commercial, leisure, open space, the consultations that have taken place. So let's not forget we've consulted on the placemaking strategy back in 2020. We've done an open space concept design consultation, I want to say in 2022. The details in the report in terms of the cabinet reports. We've also consulted in terms of the appropriation of land, the compulsory purchase order process. We've been in with lots of local schools over the last 5 years. We've obviously carried out the recent engagement and exhibition with the master plan. So to me, it's not one person or even one, organisation that's defined this vision. It's organically developed through those years. It's had to respond at each point. I think the point before about what's the critical number in terms of viability, any vision has to be grounded in viability. Someone could put, I'm a surfer, I'd love to put one big wave pool on Salt Lake, but it doesn't stack up, it's not viable, so that wouldn't be a credible vision. So, I can't really give you a direct response because it's not one person. It's an organic evolution of what's right for the town. Certainly, we're still getting feedback that people are not content with the proposals, and that's why we're here today to discuss the direction of travel. And I think, rightly or wrongly, there'll always be people that won't be in support of a certain vision, and that's the society we live in. But certainly, where we're at today, the master plan, as it's looking at the amendments we're looking at making, we feel as a team do respond to all of those responses over the last 5 years and beyond. So happy to take any follow-ups, but hopefully that helps.
Thank you for that, Jake. Councillor Williams, did you want to come back on anything there?
Yeah, if I could. So walked along today, and this is going to go in a couple of directions. I hope I'll try and keep it sensible. But walked on today and out to the front of the past the fair, and you've got that sort of promenade there, and it is a pinch point. It's quite narrow, but there are a number of ice cream shops and chip shops, and there was a shop opening up as we were there. They were selling buckets and spades and God knows what else, and it just struck me that might be gone, and whilst it might be everyone's cup of tea, it is very much a seaside town feel about it, and to that end, a member who's no longer on this committee, but I think they might be watching in, said, is Porthcawl no longer a seaside town, but actually a town by the sea? And there's a lot of talk now about open space and public realm, and it's fabulous, of course it is. We want lots of public space and green space and the rest of it. But is that green space to service the new town of Porthcawl, or is Porthcawl still considered to be in the future a destination? So I think that's one for the cabinet member. Is Porthcawl, is the vision for it to become a town by the sea, or is it still a destination seaside town? And I think that is a key question that we need to consider as well. And that's probably for the cabinet member, really, rather than officers.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Williams. Councillor Farr?
Thank you, Councillor Williams. For me, it is going to be a seaside town. That's my home. Although there's going to be homes on those lands, there's also going to be commercial units. So my thoughts are we will still have a shop that's going to sell bucket and spade, because without having a bucket spade shop in seaside town, it's not a seaside town, and candy floss and chip shops. So all those things are still going to be there. There'll be opportunity to have commercial units at the bottom and homes, flats on the top. And we're also exploring things like, like travelling fair in the summer, hopefully winter wonderland in the winter. So it's still exploring things that makes a town a seaside town. Hope that answers your question.
Thanks very much for that. I think it does. Councillor Williams is nodding along, so I'm assuming he's content. We'll to the other Councillor Williams. Ian?
Thank you, Chair. My question is along the same lines as Councillor Williams. I think I'll direct this towards Jake, if possible. What permanent seaside attractions will there be to attract tourists to the area and serve residents of the borough who still see Porthcawl as a seaside town and not a town by the sea? I'm thinking along the lines of what are we doing to sort of emulate what Aberavon have done with their seafront, which is full of attractions, attracts kids, and a lot of people who were attracted to Porthcawl are now using Aberavon as a destination to go by the sea.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Councillor Williams. Councillor Farr, you want to take that one?
Just to say, I've been involved in the consultation since 2022. And you're absolutely right, Councillor Williams. We've had consultation with children, with adults, and so some of the things that they propose were some kind of water features on the front. We've talked about crazy golf. We've talked about pump track, what the children wanted. So children also wanted some kind of go ape thing. So all those things will attract people to come to Porthcawl, as well as, like I said, travelling summer fair, travelling winter wonderland. But I'll pass on to Jake as well, see if he wants to say anything else. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Farr. Jake?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Farr, and thank you, Councillor Williams. The first thing I was writing down in response to your question is the beach. You know, I think people do like to talk about, you know, permanent, you know, all-weather attractions, you know, mechanical things, you know, other things, but we can't look away from this sandy beach we have there as an absolute asset, and I think a lot of people will and will continue to come to Porthcawl for the beach. But setting that aside, you know, the master plan area has been designed in such a way that there's a vast range of commercial opportunities for different leisure businesses. I think what we need to all recognise is any leisure operation has to be commercially viable. So we've got a master plan that's very flexible. It's got lots of space right on the beach. You know, let's not also forget the beach is now in public ownership, so the ability for things like surf schools and other marine-based activity to take place there is a lot greater. But ultimately, it will be down to the market and the catchment stacking up for different types of operations. So throughout the master plan process, we've had Savills advising on commercial and leisure opportunities. And parallel to the work we're doing, including this meeting and discussing the direction of travel over building heights and number of homes, there's been an expression of interest exercise carried out with leisure operators to essentially say, look, this is the master plan we've got. These are the types of spaces that are available. What interest do you have in terms of bringing your types of businesses here? So the findings of that will inform any further amendments to the master plan. If it needs to be more flexible, if we need more leisure space, if we need larger units, smaller units, then that would do that. You know, we've also got, as mentioned before, the part of the site identified capable of accommodating, you know, adventure golf, mini golf. We've got areas for pump tracks. We've got a leisure site, let's not forget, so at the bottom of Salt Lake. So, you know, that possibly will accommodate a hotel, but it also could accommodate other uses conducive to the harbour. All of these things combined will be conducive to Porthcawl remaining a real attractive place to visit. And then, as Councillor Farr's touched on, these work and process to look at meanwhile opportunities for leisure. So that could be, you know, as early as next summer, having some provision in terms of funfair style rides of an appropriate scale. But also then we look ahead, the Salt Lake public realm within the master plan has been specifically designed to accommodate in the summertime things like what happened at the Oval Basin down in Cardiff Bay. The space we've got available is greater than that as a reference point. But then again, in the winter time, we'd like to think that space could be attractive for things like Winter Wonderland. So these elements have been safeguarded into the plan, but I think we all need to recognise that, you know, the operation of any commercial business that attracts people in has to stack up for the market. Otherwise, it won't happen, and we could show something on a plan, but it wouldn't be credible, it wouldn't be deliverable, wouldn't be viable, and that would ultimately be lying to the public. So there is a fine line to tread there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, everyone. I think that pretty much answers the question. Unless you want to come back on anything? Nope. Nope, fab. Okay. We'll move on then to Councillor Clapworthy.
Thank you, Chair. So tourism keeps Porthcawl High Streets alive, but as we know, the fun fair is closing, roads will be dug up, and trade will ultimately be hit hard. What real support is in place for businesses during this disruption, or are they just expected to survive on hope and hot air? And my second question is, of the 1,100 new houses, how many of them will be social housing?
Thank you very much for that. Who wishes to take Della?
Yeah, trying to look at my camera. I'll probably start the answer. I'm sure Jake will come in to help support that. But firstly, in terms of the businesses, I think the two things to note is that the decision in relation to the fair is very much a decision that has been made by the owner of the fairground, and that has been on the cards for many years. The agreement by which the owners come to, yes, has happened over the last 3 years, but that's been in the making for quite some time. In terms of the businesses that we're talking about first and foremost in terms of that Sandy Bay area and along that frontage, our business support colleagues have already been out going in and chatting with each and every one of these businesses so that they know how they can be supported, with what type of advice, what type of support that they may be entitled to, but also fundamentally is that support that what Councillor Farr alluded to earlier, which is that this isn't an exercise in wanting to lose these businesses. These businesses are there because they're seaside businesses, and we want to retain those. So part of the work is trying to find ways in which we can retain them short term, as well as long term, and making sure that they fit into that work and in terms of how the development happens. How the development happens in terms of planning and what comes first and second and which area and part of the site get developed out. That's still to be determined, but the existing businesses will certainly be taken along on that journey with us. In terms of the town centre, the part of this regeneration work is to ensure that we've got more homes, more people living and operating within Porthcawl to be able to utilise that town centre, and we're making there's work within this master plan to make sure that connectivity is there short term and long term. So I think what I wouldn't want is for anybody to think that we've discarded or that we're not considering the existing businesses that are there, and that we want to make sure that there continues to be an environment for them to thrive in. In terms of the affordable housing provision, I'm sure Jake will step in and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but our LDP stipulates 30%. We now jointly own that land with the Welsh Government. Welsh Government have an aspiration for all public held land to deliver 50% affordable housing. I think we need to remember that affordable housing covers a significant spectrum. of types of homes. So that there will be provision within this site for a variety of types of home ownership. And that hasn't been determined yet, how that proportion will be split up. However, that umbrella of affordable home is certainly what we're aiming to achieve, so that there is a home for everybody within the site.
Thank you very much for that, Del. Does anyone have anything to add on?
If I may, please, Chair, just really quickly, it's just worth adding in terms of the existing businesses, and when we talk about the existing town centre in John Street, and it's actually work that my colleague Billy here today has progressed previously. We prepared a town centre placemaking strategy to sit alongside the master plan, and that was focused on these are an area that straddles the two. So basically, part of the town centre extends into Salt Lake, so these are a crossover. But essentially, what that work did was look at an existing health check of the town, looking at key opportunities and key interventions where we can make sure that the master plan based regeneration has benefits to the town and so back and forth, so there's a synergy there. Also looking at opportunities for businesses to access Transforming Town grant to again further boost the attractiveness of the area. But I think that the real positive out of that work, it showed that John Street, it's a real credit to Porthcawl and the traders there, is one of the best high streets in the UK in terms of vacancy, as in virtually no vacancy. It's doing really well. It's got a good mix of chains and independents, and to me the work coming forward, and as Dallas alluded to, the additional homes in the area is going to further bolster that treasure. And Councillor Farr just mentioned to me, and it's right to flag, as we're wanting to, because at the moment if you're a new business in Porthcawl, the high street's fully occupied. Where do you go? So one of the parts of the strategy, and as mentioned on site to members, there's layers to what we're doing here, but at a lower level is the small scale shipping container retail units at Hillsborough South provide an accessible way to get into trading. We'd like to think these businesses in time would either graduate into bigger units on John Street. Perhaps the John Street businesses can move into some of the new units within the regeneration area, so there hopefully will be a bit of an organic life cycle. And I think that the final point that was raised on the query that maybe want to come back on was the disruption to businesses. At the moment, we have a policy in Porthcawl where there's an embargo on these no highway works through the summer period to ensure no disruption to businesses, day trippers, holiday makers. As part of the planning application process, we'll have a very clear phasing plan to make sure that obviously there's always going to be disruption in some elements of construction, but things like parking is managed in such a way that there'll always be parking provision for the town while different phases are being delivered. Any road closures will have to be done in a coordinated way. So to me, it's a case of there will always be a degree of disruption in terms of practical construction, but the amount of land we have available, we can mitigate that significantly. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, everyone. Did you want to come back on anything there, Councillor Clark? No, you're fine. Okay, we'll move on then, because a few more hands have appeared. Councillor Martin Williams.
Yeah, I've got a question, but also a bit of a sort of rejoinder or a bit of a rebuttal there. So the officer said that the fair would have closed anyway. It's been in the making a long time, but we can't forget that a significant sum of public money was offered to those owners to take the land off their hands. So we can't sort of see that in isolation. If we go back to the vision, the vision clearly didn't want a fair there. So I make no comment on that whatsoever. But we can't sort of divorce ourselves from that decision making, because we, as in conjunction with Welsh Government, did put a large sum of money on the table. So clearly it was part of the vision, wasn't it? So we've all got responsibility for that to some degree or another. But on that point, I remember a couple of years ago this came to the Scrutiny 3 as then was, and I think it was there or full council, but I asked the question about what economic modelling had been done to see what money, what impact the fair and the associated stores and restaurants had in Porthcawl, and how much money the fair was actually generating for the high street. Has that been done since? It hadn't been done at that time. So what is the short-term economic hit to Porthcawl whilst there's no fair there and before the new residents come online?
Thanks very much for that. Jake?
Yeah, thank you. Really good questions. So I'll start from the bottom and go back to the top. And if I've missed anything, Councillor Williams, please come back to me. So in terms of economic modelling, as I've mentioned before, we've got Savills retained to do work in terms of looking at the master plan and what is the here and now credible leisure interest for various opportunities. But I think what you're alluding to, and correct me if I'm wrong, is how much money is spent at the fair, how much money is spent on those businesses around the fair. Although I'm a New Zealander and we're pretty bad at mincing our words, I think it's difficult in terms of the records that are available in terms of some of those figures. So in the past, we've, for example, had discussions looking at parking records, and because as people know, the fair used to operate Salt Lake Car Park, to understand, well, what were the takings on given days. So I don't think I'll go any further, but I think it's been a challenge to get the figures that you're alluding to. So we don't have figures to say over the last 5 years the fair's made X local spend. And also I think that we've got to also be acknowledging, well, is that money that's then filtered through Porthcawl? How is that working? So I think what you're asking for is not actually something we can obtain. So please come back to me if I'm being incorrect on that. The other thing I think is really worth mentioning when we look at, economic impacts, and you might have noticed when we're on the site visit today, the fair has a very large calendar on the gates that shows the days it's open of the year. It also shows what days it's only open half the day, what days it only opens from 5 p.m. onwards. And if you did see it, you would have seen it's actually significantly more closed more often than it's not. So I wouldn't be able to give you an exact number, but we're talking, I'm going to say this with a great degree of confidence, 2/3 of the year, it's closed. So when we say economic impact for all that part of the year, the fair and those associated businesses, which again are typically closed, I'm in Porthcawl very frequently, it's doing nothing. So I think what we're looking at in terms of our plans is a more year-round offer with still having the ability to have seasonal provision. So the types of things the fair can offer at the times of the year when that would have an uptake, and then likewise diversifying in the winter time. So, as I say, I can't give you direct figures because I don't think we're able to obtain them, but hopefully that provides some context to your questions. I think I've missed the others, so please come back to me if I have.
Thanks for that, Jake. Was there anything you want to go back on that?
That's fine. The only thing I'll say, Chair, Councillor Clackworthy made a bold statement that the closure of the fair will hit businesses, but we're not in a position to say whether that's true or not. That's the point. So it's a little bit of a leap of faith, isn't it? That we trust the process. It will be better in the future. Yeah? We can't say definitively whether Councillor Clackworthy is right or wrong. Is the point I'm trying to make.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so we're going to move on because more hands keep appearing every time I look over on the right-hand side of my screen. So we'll go to Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to come back to the 50% social housing that's coming into, with the development. And as we know, across the rest of the county borough, it's only 30% social housing. And I just wanted to, I guess, get a take on officers' thoughts, although there isn't anybody there from planning, I understand, is actually the viability of 50% of social housing regarding the developers coming in, the actual viability, what with rising costs and Section 106s that will obviously come in. What are their thoughts about the 50% being social housing?
Thanks very much, Jake.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Clark. Yeah, if I may, so in terms of the affordable housing targets, 50% is the aspiration. And just to be clear, and I know we use the words interchangeably, but it's not 50% social, it's 50% affordable. So within that, there actually will be a combination of products such as shared ownership, low-cost home ownership, affordable rent rather than social rent. So products that don't have the same negative viability impact as if you had 50% social rent, that would have a significant impact. The other element of this is, as landowners, ourselves and Welsh Government have a baseline aspiration for 35%, which is more closely aligned with the planning policy. So 50% is what we want to achieve, but the baseline would be 35, which is essentially 5% more than policy. Essentially, though, it's land value that takes the impact. So you say, would a developer be able to deliver it? What we're doing as part of our work is modelling viability based on both the 50% scenario and a 35% scenario to ensure there is sufficient value in the scheme. So essentially, if you were to spend all the money it costs to build it and factor in, profit margins, interest rates, all sorts of other factors, there would still be a positive value at the end of that. So ultimately, there will be a decision at a point in time, and this decision will be taken to Cabinet, and no doubt Welsh Government will take it to Cabinet Secretaries as appropriate to say, look, we have a phase that we're looking to sell. We could market this land at 50% affordable, and this is the likely impact on land receipt, or we could go 35%. So that's a decision to be made at a future date, but the key will be the higher the affordable, the lower land receipt, but we're modelling the whole time to make sure the scheme stacks up on the higher figures. So hopefully that helps answer your question.
Okay, thank you. I can't lower my hand, sorry, Chair. I don't know, I just can't. I think I've added to it as well, so I don't know.
That's all right, not a problem. I think Rachel's going to do it for you now. Right, we will move on then. Councillor Cole. Oh, hang on. Councillor, before I do, Councillor Farr's waving at me.
Can I just make a point as well that these 50 affordable housing will be spread across the site, so we're not going to have little ghettos. I think that's something we came back in the feedback as well, that they need to be spread across the site. Just want to make that point. Thank you.
Fabulous, thank you. It's important to note that. Thank you very much for that, Councillor Farr. Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Chair. So the key to this is in the word regeneration. And clearly, looking at such a broad canvas and the scope it offers, massive project led by our regeneration team. And it was fascinating to see the component parts that obviously we need to link up on a join the dot basis. And I get that the devil's in the detail, but the investment appropriate to developing that property will come as we move online. So I've got a lot of faith, a lot of optimism, a lot of excitement. If you look at it, Wales-wide is probably one of the biggest regeneration schemes of its kind. And I was absolutely delighted with the opportunity to accompany the officers and colleagues on that site visit today. I just felt really excited and, looking forward to the future. I get the issues with the fair, but the fair was a business model which had gone. And obviously the fairground will it's irreplaceable in that sense as a fairground, but the potential to redevelop that and make Porthcawl an exciting seaside destination, a revised Welsh Riviera. I mean, we must be very optimistic about the potential, not just for Porthcawl, but for the county borough. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Welsh Riviera, I think that's the note from today we'll take out of that. So, he's thumbs up. I don't think it requires much of a response from anyone, more of a general comment on the feel of it. I can see members have got their hands up. I am going to, because obviously we've got another big item, I'm going to take Councillor Graham Walter as the last speaker, because we've had a good row of this and loads of people have had a good chance to have their say on it. And then we'll take a break so we can swap over officers. So, Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. They're closing the fair and all the surrounding businesses. Will there be support for the existing traders that don't want to close around the fair area to move into the new business units? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Jake?
Yeah, thank you. Definitely. So the work that the economic development colleagues are doing, speaking to these businesses, is all factored around what are their future plans. Would they like to stay in the local area? And if so, working with them to look at where they could locate. We've got some additional opportunities for kind of meanwhile units that could go along the Coney Beach frontage. But I think the challenge is timing, as in there will be a period of time between the fairground closing, those businesses closing, those buildings being demolished, and the new provision being built. So it's about an intervening period, is the appropriate meanwhile provision. Or, it might be that some of these businesses, are suited to other locations and come back. Some of the businesses may only actually function best when they're next to a fair, so they may relocate to another location. I think that's an element of it as well, which I know economic development colleagues have been through about. But I think for me the key thing is recognising there will be a period of time between the fair closing and some of the new development, but that's why we're looking at meanwhile opportunities. Thank you.
Do you want to go back? Yep, fine. Thank you very much for that, Councillor Wood. Councillor Ian Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Going off a bit of a tangent, and I probably missed this part of the walk around this morning because I had to leave to go to a funeral, but it relates to the Sandy Bay area and what measures have been taken regarding the biodiversity of that area, considering we've now declared a nature emergency, because that dune system is really part of Mythamar Warren and is a very important piece of land with its biodiversity. So I just want some reassurances that that area will be well looked after.
Yeah, fabulous. Thank you very much. I think Councillor Haynes and Jake were having this conversation as
I
we
did
were
speak to
walking
Billy
back.
this morning briefly about it.
Yeah. So, Jake, do you want to take this one or?
Cheers. Thanks, Councillor Williams. Yes, so the area, all of the dune areas, everything south of the route between the High Tide and Treco Bay, that is all protected under this master plan, and these, objectives there in terms of looking to enhance it, put in, sensitive boardwalk areas, increase stabilisation planting and so forth. But what also we've now got included, which was never previously there before, is a kind of transition area. So these are part of the master plan area to the south of Sandy Bay, which is essentially quite a substantial area of public realm that would act as a transition area. So in terms of the dune habitat, be an area the public could use, but it allows the dunes to kind of naturally blend with that public open space. It allows us to retain some more areas of green space and connectivity of habitats there. The other thing as well, just to reassure, all members on, is ecology surveys is something that we have a huge requirement on now under planning requirements, and it's something over literally the last 3 years we've had various surveys undertaken. Most recently I'm, for example, in Porthcawl, believe it or not, holding a ladder every 2 weeks to help an ecologist take down bat detectors throughout Sandy Bay, the Monster Park, and Griffin Park, because it's more cost effective than paying another ecologist to hold a ladder. So I'm cheaper than an ecologist for context, because it's obviously part of my daily responsibilities. But we're going to have a huge amount of ecology work that comes in conjunction with the planning application. So it'll be very clear for anyone to see how we're looking to retain and enhance that habitat. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You could
Yes, thank you, Jake. It would be just such a shame to lose any of this biodiversity we currently have, because it's such a precious commodity now.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, Councillor Martin Williams.
Yeah, thanks. A very practical question now about the money. How will the programme be driven? Will the programme be driven by the capital receipts from various sales of houses, or is there cash in the bank, for want of a better description, to get all of the infrastructure in first? Obviously, we've got the road through Griffin Park. That would have to go into to open up the other areas for development. But I'm thinking more the promenade area. I was quite fixed with that today, and how that might be closed for some time potentially before the future promenade is there. And also I'm mindful of the council's resources, and to balance. Do we have to dip into our tin before the housing receipts come in? So I'd just like to have a better understanding of how the programme will be driven and how it'll be financed.
Thank you very much for that. Jake?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Williams. So it's yet to be determined the exact extent of the first phase for disposal. So that will be subject to future decisions. It's likely a paper will be taken to Cabinet in due course, setting out what the phasing plan is and the extent of the first disposal. But I'll run through some hypotheticals for the benefit of scrutiny. So, for example, one possible scenario could be that the Sandy Bay parcel is an initial phase. That parcel, based on the viability modelling, would be more than sufficient in terms of its value to fund the delivery of the access road, range of drainage diversions, power getting into the site and so forth. And then there'd still be a residual land receipt. These other areas where that receipt could then be used to fund works. So it could be a case of that receipt comes in, the coastal defence revetment is funded. Likewise, there's a world where initial phasing is more extensive and the extent of land sold is greater, and therefore it could fund the revetment as part of that works package. So these are a few different scenarios, but I think the common thread will be it won't be a requirement on the authority to front fund works, because we've got sufficient residual land value in all the parcels to fund the associated infrastructure of public realm. I think it's worth acknowledging that we do have a partner landowner who's very motivated, arguably has more resources than us as a local authority, being Welsh Government, and there could be scenarios where they support us in certain areas of front funding works if that was seen to be a better outcome for both the Council and Welsh Government long term. So again, any decisions of that nature would subject to Cabinet consideration. The financial implications would be considered in detail, but there is a world where some of the elements could benefit from being driven forward in parallel to, say, the house building, rather than waiting for all the money to come in and then reinvest it. But that will need to be subject to a risk assessment in terms of financial risk profile, where's the money coming from, and so forth. But as I say, that would be subject to future Cabinet decisions.
Great, thank you very much for that. Martin, did you want to come back at all? Nope, fine. Okay, we'll move on to Councillor Clatworthy.
Thank you, Chair. Can the Council guarantee that these new houses will be prioritised for local families and not handed over to people with no connection to the area through backdoor deals with the Home Office? Thank you.
I'm not sure who can answer that question because, Martin Morgans can actually, as I think he still has housing as part of his portfolio. So, Martin.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. It's a really valid one. Actually taking a report to Cabinet this month in terms of what's called our social housing allocation policy, and that takes into account a profile of the persons on the Common Housing Register to determine who's best in need, and based on a number of criteria. So it'll be an interesting report that goes to Cabinet. It'll obviously, we've gone through consultation with third sector partners as well as service users, etc., and residents. So hopefully that will be an explicit positive approach for us. I think, in terms of the social housing allocation policy, it's an equitable process in terms of the determination of nominations, but it also keeps the authority safe as well in terms of that process. Keen for the Cabinet report to be approved going forward, which will then provide the social housing and policy updated policy review, which will sort of mitigate some of those areas you've highlighted in your question. Thank you.
And just for note as well, we will be having a look at the social housing policy. I believe it's scheduled for our September meeting. So that's something for members we can have a look at there, which I think will be most useful and something we can discuss when we get to our forward work programme. Councillor Farr, you're hovering over your button. Did you want to come in?
I am. So obviously we've got a social housing allocation policy which we would have oversight of, and we will be not nominating who goes in those houses. But then we need to take into account that there are going to be some private homes there, and that'd be up to the builders who he sells those homes to. We won't have any say over those. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Clatworthy doesn't look like he wants to come back in, so we will move on to our last speaker on this agenda item, Councillor Graham Walter.
Thanks, Chair. As a local member co-sharing the ward, all this activity is taking part in with Neil O'Farr, I'd like to try and summarise to some extent and bring us back to the beginning, which was a very positive contributions at the beginning of this debate, and I'd like to thank all members for their contributions. What we've been seeing, I think, over the last 10 years in particular, certainly since the tarmac beach was removed, are gradual incremental changes through the improvement of the sea defences, extra facilities, and this is all good. It's too easy to listen to a vocal section of people on Facebook who set up groups to knock anything and everything that's going on, but it ignores the bigger picture that we've seen in this document and elsewhere today about things that are happening. We've seen, for example, new professional services businesses moving into town. We have a new estate agent, a new legal firm. We've got bars, cafes, shops. We've got nearly zero empty properties in the commercial centre. This is future investment from businesses. Now, actually, most of the residents I speak to, with caveats, want to see the developments broadly as outlined. And it's important that Jake and the team have listened to those caveats and are responding well, in my view, through this document to them. Those people generally aren't on Facebook. Every business owner I've spoken to wants to see things happening. They want to see the development move forward. We're seeing more events, we're seeing a more vibrant town centre, and we've got a very positive future to look forward to. Unfortunately, there isn't a Facebook group for that, but let's recognise the good work that's been outlined in this document and support the efforts that have been made so far and get on with it. Thanks, Chair.
That's the most times Facebook groups has been mentioned in this committee. But thank you for that, Councillor Waltz. It's very important. Or I did say Councillor Waltz was going to be the last speaker.
You did. It's a very brief one, Chair.
Go on.
Page 32. Reports provided updates to seek approval and provided the Cabinet. There was a project previously on the site of Cozy Corner. I believe it was called the Credo project. Why was there no report included or sent to Cabinet regarding that? Why isn't that included on this document, please?
Jake, Della?
Sorry, can I just confirm what Councillor Williams referring to a particular report that he's aware of, or is he asking why a report wasn't taken?
Well, no,
Sorry,
it starts on
clarification.
15th September 2020, and on it says December 2020 report to Cabinet Cozy Corner. But prior to that, there was another project which was underway at Cozy Corner, which didn't proceed.
The Craddy project wasn't a local authority project, so a Cabinet report would not have been presented in relation to that.
But it was on local authority land.
And it is possible that there may have been a report which included some work around licence or leases relating to the land, but not in relation to the project.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, no problem. Thank you very much for that.
Can I just come in as well, just for clarity? This list is not all reports that have been taken to Cabinet in relation to anything in Porthcawl in that time. So the list starts essentially with the 2020 report in relation to Salt Lake and Sandy Bay sites, but it's very likely the other reports prior, the other reports in connection with Porthcawl back, to 2007, 2005. This is not an exhaustive list of all reports, if that makes sense. But if you want us as a takeaway to go and see what reports there are, we can do that.
We'll pick that up in our recommendations if maybe something we want require further information. Councillor Clark.
I feel I have to make it clear, because credit was mentioned, that I am not declaring an interest, mainly because I was not a director, I was not remunerated, and I did not benefit one iota from the credit project. So okay. I just wanted to make that plain, that reason why I'm not declaring an interest.
That's perfectly fine. Thank you very much for that, Councillor Clark. Now that will be the last contribution. And so thank you very much, everyone. I think we had a good airing of the project today, as well as the site visit this morning. So thank you very much for putting that on for us, Della, Jake, and the rest of the team there, especially with the giant map. That really helped put the better than we were trying to do it last time with pictures and fold out pictures. So thank you very much for that. We're going to take a break now for 10 minutes while one set of officers leaves and another set of officers and cabinet member come in. So we'll be back here at 17:25. I'll give everyone 11 minutes. Right, so see you then.